This is the next lecture in the series of the news analysis. So we are going to talk about some of the important topics which are there in news and which will be helpful for civil service examination and also for UPSC examination. So first thing that we are going to talk here, it is Lingaraj temple. So Lingaraj temple, it belonged to particularly Orissa state, and we are going to discuss some of the things regarding to the Lingaraj temple here. There is a question given here that consider the following statement. Three statements are given here. That Lingaraj temple is built in 11th century AD, dedicated to Lord Shiva, which is the correct statement. Second statement, it is believed to have been built by the Chola dynasty, who were the great devotee of the Shiva. It is the wrong statement. Third one is one of the attraction of the temple is Bindusagar Lake. This is the correct statement. The answer will be 1-3C. So we will explain this question with respect to the explanation. We will see the explanation, then you will understand the correct and wrong statement, why the answer is C there. What is the context here? That Bhubaneswar Municipal Corporation has restricted the public entry to this 11th century Lingaraj temple because 4 priests there, the priests were called as Sevayats. So 4 priests were tested positive for the novel coronavirus. So this is the image of the Lingaraj temple from the Bhubaneswar. So here is the information regarding the Lingaraj temple. So Lingaraj temple is built in 11th century AD, is dedicated to Lord Shiva. Okay, and this is the largest temple of the city Bhubaneswar, and it is believed to have built by the Somvanshi king Yayati I. So it is not built by the Chola dynasty, though Cholas were devotees of the Shiva, but it is not built by the Chola dynasty. It is built by the Somvanshi king Yayati I. The main tower of the temple measures 180 feet in the height. It is built in the red stone. And the temple is divided into 4 sections. So which are these 4 sections? This Garbhagriha, which is a sanctum sanctorium, then Yagnashala, the hall of prayer, then Bhoga Mandap, the hall of offering, the Natyashala, the hall of dance. The sprawling of the temple, the complete area of the temple has around 150 subsidiary shrines. That it is a huge complex, a big complex, which consists of 150 subsidiary shrines. So this temple is particularly also called as Swayambhu. Swayambhu means self-originating Shivling, means no one has put that Shivling there, it is self-originated at the same place. That's why it is called as the Swayambhu Shivling, self-originated Shivling. And one of the attraction there is a Bindusagar Lake. It is in the complex only, and it is situated at the north side of the temple. Next news that was in news in the newspaper recently was this bat with the sticky discs. So recently, India's first bamboo dwelling bat with the sticky disc has been found in which state? That's the question, and it is found in Meghalaya. So D is the answer. So what is the context? That Meghalaya has India's first bamboo dwelling bat. It's very important. It is the first bamboo dwelling bat with the sticky discs, and it with that finding, it takes the total number of species with the flying mammal in the country to 130. So there are total 130 species which are considered in the category of the flying mammal. So this is the specific picture regarding this bat with this disc-footed bat, it is called as. So disc-footed bat was recorded in the northeast states, this northeastern state of Meghalaya we are talking about. That in that state at Lailad area it is found. So Lailad area is near the Nong Kholeng Wildlife Sanctuary, which is about 1000 km west to nearest known habitat of the Myanmar. So in Myanmar these are found, but in India it was first time found in the Meghalaya. So here in the map we can see that this is the Nong Kholeng Wildlife Sanctuary. This is the map of Meghalaya. In Meghalaya you will see in the northeast area, this is the Nong Kholeng Wildlife Sanctuary, and there in near that area we have found this disc-footed bat. So some of the extra information regarding this bat, that it is a very specialized bat with disc-like pads in the thumb. Okay, so it has a disc-like pads in the thumb, and it has a bright orange coloration. Next is that it has a flattened skull and sticky pads which enable the bat to roost inside the cramped spaces and to stick or to cling to the smooth surfaces of the bamboo. And it is also found as genetically very different from the other known bats which has this disc-like pads. So there are other bats also which are disc-like pads, but it is genetically different from them. That's one of the most important thing here. And this disc-footed bat discovery has raised the Meghalaya's total bat count to 66. and Meghalaya has the maximum count. No other state like Meghalaya has that count of a number of bats. So Meghalaya has 66 bats count, and which is the most for any state in India. That's important thing for the Meghalaya. Next is regarding the Asian. So ASEAN is Association of Southeast Asian Nation. So it is regarding important for GS2 paper international relation. And the question is, which are the following are the founding members of the Asian group? So some members are given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5: Laos, Singapore, Myanmar, Indonesia, and Philippines. And we have to find the founding members. See, if you see all these members are the members of the ASEAN, but all are not founding members. So we have to talk about founding members here. The answer is A here, 2, 4, 5: Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines. But there are 5 founding members that we will talk about. What is the context why we are particularly discussing it? Because this Myanmar Junta chief or a military chief is going to attend this ASEAN meeting that is going to happen in Indonesia on the April 24. But the shadow government of the Myanmar, which are established by these people who belong to that Aung San Suu Kyi's party, they said that they are actually requesting this ASEAN group to not to allow this military regime to sit in the ASEAN meeting. So not and therefore not to recognize the military regime there. So with respect to that, we are talking about this ASEAN grouping. So here it is the map which talks about all the Asian countries all are shown here. All these 10 members are shown here. All belong to Southeast Asian countries only. So this ASEAN summit is very important because it is the prime policy making body of the ASEAN. It is the supreme policy making body, and it talks about the that it gives the direction for the Asian policies and the objectives. So it meets twice a year. So since it is very important, that's why the shadow government asking the Asian body not to allow this military chief to sit in that ASEAN summit. So regarding the ASEAN, we are talking about that it is established in 8 August 1967 in the Bangkok, Thailand, after the signing of this Bangkok Declaration. It is also called as the ASEAN Declaration by the founding fathers. So which are these founding father countries? Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, and the Philippines are the founding countries of the ASEAN. Other joined later. So now we will see here in the explanation below, I have given that when these countries joined, other countries joined. So it was established to promote the political and social stability amid the rising tensions among the Asia Pacific most colonial states. So these states, when they were getting independent, it was creating conflicts and tensions among them. So to deal with these conflicts and tensions, this ASEAN group was started, which is also a successful group. And the motto of the ASEAN is one vision, one identity, one community. So that's their motto, and their secretary is at Indonesia, Jakarta. So here are the founding members, and the list is given. Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia are the founding members. Other joined at the various time span. Brunei joined in 1984, Vietnam joined in 1995, Laos PDR joined in 1997, Myanmar joined in 1997, and the last one who joined was Colombia, was the last who joined in 1999. That's how it became the group of the 10 countries after Colombia joined it. So ASEAN Ministerial Council, actually the charter established 4 important new ministerial bodies there. So this council consists of 4 bodies to support the summit. What are these 4 councils? That ASEAN Coordinating Council, ASEAN Political Security Community Council, ASEAN Economic Community Council, and ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community Council. These are the 4 important councils which are considered as a part of this ASEAN Ministerial Council. So what is the significance of this group? That the significance is the 3rd largest market in the world. So definitely it is much important. It is 6th largest economy in the world and the 3rd in Asia. That makes it more important again. Then the free trade agreement with the China, Japan, South Korea, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand it has. So definitely it is a very important market for all these countries, and the 4th important popular investment destination globally. So that's why it is so much of important. So India-ASEAN relations we are talking about here. This is an extra information related to India, that they have already completed 25 years of dialogue partnership, 15 years of summit level interaction, and the 5 years of strategic partnership it is completed. So ASEAN is India's 4th largest trading partner, and also it stands approx 10.6% of India's overall trade. So the financial assistance that provided from India to Asian countries, which it is with respect to the 3 funds which are established. The 3 funds are ASEAN India Corporation Fund, Asian India Science and Development Fund, Asian India Green Funds. So Corporation Fund, it is for economy, science and development, definitely science and tech development, it is regarding research and development. Then Asian India Green Fund is regarding to the environmental corporation. Then there is a Delhi Declaration with respect to those. The Delhi Declaration is to identify the corporation in maritime domain. That's important. So they are also working, having a corporation in the maritime domain, and Delhi Declaration wants to have a Asian India strategic partnership in the maritime domain. So that's why this Delhi Declaration is important here. Next topic we are going to talk about it, eSanta. So what is this eSanta? Actually, it is the electronic marketplace to connect aqua farmers and the buyers. With respect to that, we will see in the detail. The question here is, the term eSanta is related to that. We know that the answer will be B here, the electronic marketplace providing platform to connect aqua farmers and the buyers, that we have already seen in the headline itself. So the answer will be B. Some explanation here is given why we are talking about this particular topic, because the Union Minister of Commerce and Industry had recently inaugurated this eSanta initiative. Okay, so explanation here is, the term eSanta has considered as coined as a web portal. It is a web portal, and the long form of eSanta is electronic solution for augmenting NACSA, farmers trade in aquaculture. What is this NACSA? This National Center for Sustainable Aquaculture. It is NACSA in short. It is an extension arm of Marine Product Export Development Authority. This Marine Product Export Development Authority, it is controlled by Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So definitely this National Center for Sustainable Aquaculture is the part of this Ministry of Commerce and Industry itself. So it will enable the farmers to get better price and exporter, because the sellers are getting connected to the buyers. So definitely it will going to get the better price to the farmers also, and the exporters also will get the better products, better quality products, and it will increase the farmers, enhancing traceability, a key factor in international trade. So how does this eSanta work? So it is completely paperless. It is a web platform, already been told. So it's completely paperless. It is end-to-end electronic trade platform between the farmers and the exporters. So farmers will provide the list of the products and they will quote their prices. So exporter will come, they will see the list and they will see the prices, and if they like the products, like the prices, and the deal will be cracked. Once the deal is cracked, then the payment will happen. So how the payment will happen? It will happen with the electronic payment system. So there is a end-to-end electronic payment system here. So with respect to that, the payment will happen. So once the negotiation happened, the deal is struck, the advance payment will be made and the invoice will be generated. That's how the trade between the aqua farmers and the exporters has been made simple. So it will provide the better price to the farmers also. So government said that it will raise the lives and the incomes of the farmers, because it will reduce the risk, because exporters are getting it easily. So it will reduce the risk of any losses. Then it will increase their awareness of products and the markets. They will get more access to more exporters means awareness about the more products and the more markets. Then it will increase the income of the farmer. Definitely middleman chain is just avoided. Now they are directly approaching the exporters, so increase their income will be increased. They will get the better prices, because the prices are getting quoted by the farmers only. So better prices they are getting, and it is a shield against the wrong practices. No middleman is there, so protection from the wrong practices is also there, and it will ease out the process, because everything is online. The exchange is online. The deal is getting struck online. Even the money transaction happening with end-to-end transaction, online transaction, it is happening. So it is making the complete process easy and simpler. So if you like this video, please subscribe the channel, like the video, comment the video, and share the video. Thank you.